Hey Ubers, welcome to Make Ahead Monday. Today we're going to be doing a happy birthday card to prepare for any upcoming birthdays you may have to make cards for. Before we get started, I just want to talk about a few card making subjects. And I'd love to hear from you about what you found. I've been looking for a chevron stamp that's versatile. And I'm wondering if any of you have found any that you really like and, if they work for you and why. I'm thinking about getting the Lawn Fawn chevron stamp because there are 3 different types of chevrons that I think I could use for different occasions and styles. I'm also hankering for some new stamps. I've been looking through all of my old ones and I'm just bored, but I'm really trying to budget and I don't want to go crazy. So I'm really trying to look at what I have and get some good use out of it. But I want some stamps, stamp sets with individual stamps that have a lot of solid spaces, solid areas. I found that the technique that I'm going to show you today, which I actually am grabbing from Shari Carroll from Hero Arts. She's called it Velvetine stamping. I thought I'd try it out myself and see what I could come up with. I find that this technique works best when you have stamps, background stamps that have a lot of solid inked areas and stamps to go on top that have a lot of inked areas. So that's that. I also found Stamper's Best on YouTube. That's a company that sells all sorts of rubber stamps, mounted and unmounted. And I've got to tell you guys, they have some really good bargains. So you should go over there to Stamper's Best and check them out. I got a damask background stamp that I'm already playing around with, and hopefully I'll have something to show you with that one pretty soon. And another leaf background stamp. There was a grape stamp, a grapevine stamp with grapes and grape leaves. And also they just threw in a beautiful bird stamp, a bird that's perched on a twig, on a tree, that I'm going to be using for today's video. So I'm slowly starting to accomplish my goal of accumulating more stamps, but if there are any out there, companies or stamps that you absolutely love, let me know. I have my eyes open for beautiful stamps with solid areas and detailed edges. So I've got a standard size card base that when folded measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is using white cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. It's nice and thick. And I'm going to be using white pigment ink to stamp a background. Shari Carroll on the Hero Arts site used, just a simple background stamp with some nice solid areas. I think it's important to have solid areas on your background stamp for this to have a good effect. I didn't have a background stamp that I particularly liked for this project, so I'm using something from a large set of unmounted rubber stamps from Fiskars to create my background. So this is a nice juicy color box frost white pigment ink, and I'm just creating a nice background, filling in all the spaces where I'm going to want to create some extra texture. I won't show you all of it, but you're just going to want to go ahead and fill up all that space. If there's an area that you don't want to have this textured effect, then just leave that blank, but I won't show it to you. So you'll get that all stamped, and under the light and close up you can see what I've done. It's very juicy, but you're going to want to set that aside to dry. I think you could speed that up a little bit if you use the heat tool on it, but just be careful because, you know, the heat tools can sometimes warp your cardstock. And once that's dry, you're going to want to start stamping images on there with dye ink. So I've used this cherry blossom stamp before, and I just stamped that up with some Victorian velvet. And after you stamp it, you're going to want to dab that with a rag or a paper towel. And I watched Shari do it on her video, and I was wondering why. As I actually did it myself, I realized that it helps the ink, it helps remove some of the ink from the areas that were previously stamped with pigment ink, so that you can create more variation in your stamped images. Because I've already stamped my card front with pigment ink, those areas that have the pigment don't absorb future layers of ink that you set down as well. It's lighter where there was pigment. And when you tamp it with a rag or paper towel, it makes the effect even more pronounced. So I changed colors with the same stamp. I'm using some Jenny Bolin ink in another pastel shade. I think ultimately this card has a lot of pastel colors in it. You'll see at the end, I'll give you some shots and some close-ups. And I think this is very much inspired by the wonderful opportunity we had this weekend to get outside. It's already spring here in Las Vegas. We had 70-degree weather throughout the weekend and even today, so that was such a blessing. And my guy and I were able to get out into nature and walk around the pond with our cameras in tow, and we were able to get some shots. There are a lot of pine trees around here, and they're sending out new buds and shoots, and there are pastels everywhere I look. So it was a really nice feeling to get out, and there were a lot of other people out there who I guess had been hankering for some outdoor play. So it was fun to see everybody. Anyway, here's another stamp from one of my Fiskars sets. And like I said, in order for this technique to work, you need to have some solid areas. So I used, I believe, Vintage Photo on this stamp, and because it's a darker stamp and I didn't want it to be that dark, I stamped it once on scrap and then followed up with a second stamp without re-inking in order to get a lighter shade. So I just went through my entire stash of stamps, and it so turned out that my Fiskars, the stamp sets that I had from Fiskars, had the greatest number of individual stamps that had a lot of solid areas. I love these stamp sets, and I'm really glad that I'm getting some good use out of them. Here's another flower, and I believe I used Wild Honey on that one. And actually the white pigment effect, this Velvetine stamping effect, worked really nicely with that color. So if you do own that one, I'd suggest, you know, reaching for that one first, because the white showed through very nicely. So I'm speeding it up a little bit. I experimented with overlapping, which worked to some nice effect. I just wanted to give that effect of spring bursting forth. And this is another stamp. This color was Spun Sugar, which is a little bit lighter than the Victorian Velvet. And I reserved the area in the top because I'm going to place my focal image there. I received, actually as my bonus, when you make an order from Stampers Best, they give you 1 or 2 stamps for free. They just include one in there that they think you might like. This is my first order from them. This is a Jenny Bolin ink called Soap Powder. So back to the Stampers Best, they sent me a stamp of a bird, and it's really beautiful. I'm so excited, so I'm going to use that as my focal image. So this stamp that they sent me for free is unmounted, and I've never actually owned any unmounted rubber stamps. They've at least had the cushioning on the back that you can stick onto your acrylic block. So I just temporarily adhered it with some snail onto my acrylic block. I misplaced my Stamp-A-Majig. I would have used it for this, but I just eyeballed it, and it worked out all right. But it's really pretty. So I wanted to give the impression that the bird is sort of peeking out from all the new growth. And so you can see close up, see how the orange, the wild honey, really took that ink beautifully. The spun sugar as well. So it just creates a little bit of extra depth, and I can see why Shari called it Velvetine stamping, because it's got that sort of a feeling. I snipped a little hole in the top of my card through which I'm going to feed some white satin ribbon. Originally I thought that would be nice because there's already so much color in the card. But you know I'm all about texture. So in the end I actually pulled this ribbon out and went back to my favorite, which is the burlap that I get from Michaels. This is a little strip that I made as I was playing around with my stash. I used a Fisker's texture plate. I believe it's called Scales. And I sent a piece of white cardstock through my Big Shot with it. And then I used the Jenny Bolin Spice Tin ink on it. I used my blending tool to just bring out the texture from the texture plate. And then I actually put the ripped edges at the top and the bottom right onto the ink pad to create some darkness. And then to create more roughness, I sanded the top of the strip, and that's how I got that effect. This Happy Birthday sentiment is from Hampton Arts, their footlong, and I used the same ink that I used on the ripped piece for this sentiment, and I just stuck that on there with some snail. And I think that ripped strip just gives a little bit of extra texture and some darkness on the edges that this card needs, in my opinion. So here's the card. But in the shots that I'm going to show you in just a second, you'll see I switched out that ribbon for a light colored burlap that adds a little bit more of the texture that I so dearly love. So I think this technique could have a wide variety of applications. It seems that the more intense the color, the more pronounced the effect. But all in all, it is a very subtle effect, and I think it could actually be very appropriate for sympathy card. So although this is a happy birthday card, you could use this technique for a whole bunch of different occasions. I chose to go really wild with the colors, and it makes me happy to look at it. I know in Shari's video she just had a few pops of very tasteful color, which was very nice. I want to try that myself once I have a couple more inks to play with. Um, Here are some close-ups of the effect, the Velvetine stamping effect. And it's very pretty. And there you go with the orange color. I'm really digging this scale texture plate that I used for the base of the sentiment. So I'm thinking I may play around with that just a little bit more, and here you go. I just love that. Um, I may play around with it a little bit more and shortly provide you with an inspiring technique video, hopefully. Um, until then, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I will have a complete supply list up on my blog. Today's the 5th, and I wanted to get this out today because it's Monday and it's Make Ahead Monday. But I will also have a supply list on my blog tomorrow at contadinak.wordpress.com. Okay, bye.